Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. This one is transfer plans, where we'll have a brief look at how I got on in game week 13, talk about how I'm feeling about some of the players I've got in my team, whether I want to keep them or sell them, and then have a look at how I'm set up for game week 14 and look at the transfers that I'm planning. So, as you can see on screen, this week 78 points, which on Saturday it was looking bad. I had 8 points from 5 players, I think. I had Verbruggen, 8 Nuri, Mbomo, Cunha and João Pedro. But every single player in my team today, Sunday, has returned. Dalot 6 points, Trent 8 points, Bruno 9 points, Salah 13, Palmer captain 28 and Jackson. So the move I made this week was I had Raul Jimenez and I sold him for João Pedro. That wasn't something that I planned. So I wildcarded in game week 10 and I didn't have that move planned, but mainly because the move only rested on whether I thought Garnacho was going to start or not. And leading up to the game week 13 deadline, I didn't think Garnacho was going to start. Got that right in the end. So I transferred Raul Jimenez out for João Pedro for that nice Southampton at home fixture. Obviously he didn't get any points, but I'm glad I've got João Pedro going forward. So technically I would have played Garnacho instead of Raul, so that transfer has got me 1 extra point because João Pedro got 2 and Garnacho got 1. But it wasn't really a massive success at this point. But anyway, Verbruggen with 2 points, really frustrating. I thought that was going to be, having Verbruggen and João Pedro for that Southampton at home game, I thought it was going to be brilliant. After the first half it looked brilliant as well, but wasn't to be. That's kind of 2 annoying clean sheet, Brighton could have had clean sheets in the last 2 game weeks, but through 1 or 2 chances have just thrown it away annoyingly. But it is what it is. Then 8 Nuri with 0 points. I wasn't expecting loads from him. He's been playing a little bit further back recently, but I think that may be just due to Wolves not having the players kind of available. Not sure if that's going to be a long-term thing. I need to keep monitoring it, but for the next 4, Wolves have got great fixtures, so I'm happy to keep him. Diego Dalot was one that... So on my Game Week 10 wildcard, I went for triple Man United, Dalot, Fernandes, Garnacho, with the plan that after Game Week 13, I'd get rid of at least 2 of them, because United had a great run of 3 or 4 fixtures, and now their fixtures aren't so good. So Dalot is someone that I'm looking to sell this week, for sure. I'll talk about it in a second, but I've got 3 free transfers. Trent, I'm really glad I kept Trent. When most people were selling Trent last week, I didn't need to because I had enough defenders that I could bench him. So I benched him last week and came straight back in this week. Really glad I kept him. 8 points, I think, unless the bonus points change, which is really good. Mbomo is another one that I kind of thought about transferring out after game week 13. I'm not that worried about him like a lot of people seem to be. He is playing... he wasn't playing right wing back yesterday like a lot of people said he was. That was just a bit of nonsense, to be honest. I mean, he played as the highest Brentford player yesterday. Yes, he hasn't taken many shots recently. Yes, he hasn't been getting many points, but the fixtures aren't as bad as they look to begin with. I think it might be Newcastle potentially this week or something like that. It's not the worst fixture anyway, so I'm fine with keeping him. I do have a plan to get rid of him though, which I'll talk about in the next part. Bruno Fernandes, 9 points. Really glad that I kind of went for it, kept him on wildcard, because I captained him the other week when he got 17 points. He's been brilliant for me over the last few. Again, as I mentioned, Man United's fixtures aren't the best, so there is an option for me to sell him, which I'll talk about in the next part as well. Salah. Now, I don't actually think I did have Salah vice-captain. I've got it on the graphic there, but I think I had Mbomo vice-captain because I was never really considering Salah as a captaincy option. I'm not even glad he did well, to be honest, because the fact that I didn't have him captain meant that he hurt my rank, but it is what it is. I knew that there was always potential for Salah to do well. There is in every single Liverpool game at the moment. Palmer captain, really glad I went for that. I didn't have Saka, obviously, so I captained the player in my team who got the most points, which is always nice. And 14 points is very, very good. Very happy with that. Up front, we mentioned Cunha, we mentioned João Pedro. Neither of those went particularly well this week, but Cunha's been brilliant for me, so I'm fine with keeping him. They've got 4 really nice fixtures. João Pedro, again, is a good long-term hold. Brighton's fixtures are brilliant. Jackson is one that he keeps not getting this yellow card, so all the time he's not doing that, I'm happy with him because he looks like scoring in every single game. Fabianski on the bench, -1. Garnacho with 1. Lewis, I forgot to put his points in, but they didn't matter because they're on my bench. And Anderson didn't play. So let's have a look at how I'm lined up for Game Week 14 and my transfer thinking. Okay, this is how I'm currently lined up for Game Week 14. Now, goalkeepers is actually a difficult one. So Fabianski has Leicester away. Verbruggen has Fulham away. Leicester away is a slightly better fixture, but Brighton are a better defence. So I'm not actually sure where I'll land on that, to be honest. I don't have Raul anymore, so I don't have Raul facing Verbruggen. I don't have any Leicester attackers, so that doesn't really come into it. That's going to be kind of a 50-50 choice that I'll need to make at the time, but whatever, that's fine. It isn't Newcastle for Mbommo, as I mentioned earlier. Newcastle are playing Liverpool. So Trent Alexander-Arnold has Newcastle, fine with that. He came off early against City. That was presumably because he had that injury and he got about 70-something minutes, so he should be fine to start against Newcastle. Happy I kept him. Aït-Nouri has Everton away, good fixture, so happy to keep him. I could even play Lewis if I think he starts with Nottingham Forest at home, but I will probably have no idea whether he starts or not, so I'll probably go with Aït-Nouri. And Diogo Dalot, as I mentioned, he's one that I'm looking to sell. So this week, as I mentioned, I've got 0.2 million in the bank. I've got 3 free transfers, so I can do a few different things with my team here. I'll go through the transfers in a second, but Dalot is probably not going to be in my team come the deadline. Mbommo, so it's Aston Villa away, that's the fixture. Yeah, I don't see that as that bad a fixture. Villa haven't been that bad defensively at home, haven't been that bad defensively this season, especially in the Champions League. But it does seem like the game that they play just after their Champions League game, they're quite bad. So that I was expecting that from the Chelsea game. But yeah, I don't really mind keeping Mbommo this week. I'm fine with it. I don't really want him long term, I don't think, but I don't feel like I need to get rid of him ASAP. Then Bruno Fernandes has Arsenal away. Now, I'm looking at getting rid of Garnacho, who's first on my bench, with Dalot. So there's a chance that I could probably bench Fernandes if I really didn't want to play him. And that may actually be something I'll do, to be honest. But nevertheless, I doubt I'll be selling Bruno Fernandes this week. Salah has Newcastle away. I'll definitely be keeping him. I doubt I'll be captaining him. I do have Palmer with Southampton away, so it is kind of close between them two, to be honest. But at the moment, I'm on Palmer. And obviously, Palmer's going nowhere. Southampton away is a brilliant fixture. Up front, I've got Cunha with Everton away. As I mentioned a minute ago when I was talking about Aït-Nouri, really happy with that fixture. Cunha is just brilliant, so glad I've got him. João Pedro, Fulham away. Again, that's an okay fixture. It's not the best, but João Pedro is so good. Happy I've got him. I'm not worried about the fact that both of them blank this week either, is what it is. And then Jackson didn't get a yellow card, so I thought he'd get a tactical yellow card so that he misses a midweek game and a relatively easy midweek game. But he didn't. He as well came off early, so the chances of him starting looks pretty good this week, and that is a great fixture as well, so I'm really happy I've got him. And then it gets to transfers, so as I mentioned, Dalot and Garnacho are the players that I'm looking at getting rid of this week. And Mbommo and Fernandes are 2 players that I potentially am looking at getting rid of next week, but we'll talk about Dalot and Garnacho first. So one thing I don't have, which I do want, is a piece of the Arsenal defence. So I don't have enough money in the bank to go from Dalot to an Arsenal defender, but I do have Garnacho, who is somewhere around 6.2 million. I'm looking at Semenyo or Rodgers for that Garnacho spot. It will probably be Semenyo, There's also a couple of other options. So I know I mentioned about getting rid of Man United players because of their fixtures, but Amad Diallo is doing really good things under Amorim. So I really like him in that wing-back role. He is getting so far forward. 2 assists today. He got assist last week as well in Amorim's first game. So I think he's got that right wing-back spot nailed down. And he is very cheap, so I can bench him quite a lot. But yeah, the other options are Justin Kluivert as well. We've now kind of learnt that he's on penalties for Bournemouth, So he could be a really great budget option. His minutes aren't great though. He started the last few, but he's come off early in almost all of them. So minutes aren't really there, but again, he's very cheap. But the ones I'm really looking at are Rodgers and Semenyo. I think it will be Semenyo that I go for. I just love how... I mean, he's taken the second most shots in the league this season behind Haaland. I think I've said that in a few videos. But he takes so many shots. And most good things go through him for Bournemouth. So I think I'll be going with him. And that also frees up a bit of money for Dalot up to Jurrien Timber. I can't get up to Gabriel or Saliba, unfortunately. But I can get to Jurrien Timber, who feels kind of safe at the moment. At the start of the season, or even a couple of weeks ago, I don't really think he was that safe. But with Ben White out injured for a while now, I think he is a bit safer. Then, I've got 3 free transfers. I'd be using 2 of them this week. So it'd be Dalot to Timber, who I'd start against Man United, which isn't the best, but it is what it is. I want an Arsenal defender. Then it would be Garnacho to Semenyo, who I could then play, and I'd potentially bench Fernandes. I don't really know who else I would bench, unless I thought that someone wasn't going to start, like João Pedro maybe. But I probably would bench Fernandes. Then, so that would be leaving 1 free transfer in the bank, meaning I'd have 2 next week. And a player that I don't have that I potentially want is Bukayo Saka. He obviously got 3 assists and a goal this week. That Arsenal team is just transformed since Odegaard's come back. They look so good now. So I definitely want a piece of that. Probably is Saka that I want. So I can do a move where I get rid of Mbomo and Fernandes and go for Saka and a cheaper mid. So whether that be Justin Kluivert, Amad, I don't think I can get out to Rodgers. So it would have to be one of the really cheap options. But that's not for this week, that's for next week anyway. I kind of like where my team's at. I like my free forwards. I know that Jackson's going to miss a game soon, but I really like my free forwards. My defence is okay. Lewis is a bit of a problem. Anderson's injured, but he can sit on the bench. And then I like where my midfield's at as well, to be honest. So happy with my team. My moves are probably Dalot to Timber and Garnacho to Semenyo. And then look at Fernandes and Mbomo next week to potentially get Saka. If you've got any questions on my team or on your team, then drop them in the comments. But that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next one.